Monster Hunter Wilds released February 28th of this year. The build-up to its release was worrying. Issues with performance plagued the beta. Their intent to use frame generation was concerning. So were these things. Upon release, it's received mixed to positive reviews. But contextless numbers don't really help us here. You can't really rely on audience or critic review scores to help you understand a game. My PC has run it mostly fine without compromising too much graphically, but reports of poor performance flow steadily in. I love Monster Hunter. I talk about it far too often for what is supposed to be a variety channel. But goal 1 has always been do what I want. And I want to talk about this game until there is nothing left to say. I guess all that's left is the spoiler warning. I do want to talk about everything. So let's get on. Is that Good Kid?
Subscribe, then I cut the cord. Now I'm not online, but I'll be fine. Yeah, I guess that I'll get by. Well, I shaved my head and I grew out a beard, and now I only wear plaid. I always like I steer. I'm moving to LA. I'm writing a screenplay, but it's not about you. About a new girl you've never met her. She's just got your name, and she looks exactly the same. Tell me you know. Tell me it's okay that I dropped right off the map, and I'm falling every day. Tell me you know. Tell me it's okay, 'cause you'll find me anyway.
We'll begin with the story. Perhaps the most contentious part of Wilds is its plot, burdened with many of the same issues prior plots have had, but trying their absolute best to tell a more interesting story. And I think they succeed, at least in comparison to the new-gen games I've played. World's story was almost nothing, Rise's story was confusing, Wilds tries to tell a cohesive narrative. At its heart, the story follows Nata. His village was attacked by an unknown monster and he was sent away, wandering underground tunnels to arrive in the Windward Plains and reach the edge of the Forbidden Lands. He was found by Alma. Alma is the handler of Avis Unit. It's not 100% clear what her research focus is. She has important historical artifacts in the tent, but also takes notes on monsters when you kill them. Editor Enigma here. She is apparently a specialist in cultural anthropology and an avid archaeologist. Still not sure why she takes notes on the monsters. Maybe I missed a line? She's been better received than Nata. It helps that about 90% of the player base wants to marry her. There's really no good way to do this transition. Speaking of marrying characters, it's Gemma, the blacksmith of Avis Unit. Wow, was the thirst on this character bad. Pot, kettle, I know. She doesn't have much play in the story, mostly just comes along to ensure you can always make new stuff. Honestly, it's pretty genius. Having a blacksmith travel with the Avis Unit means they don't have to set the story around one central location. Each environment can have its own base hub, allowing for seamless transition between the hunting and crafting phases of the gameplay. Gemma really doesn't have much of an impact on the story, mostly just comes along to ensure you can always make new stuff. I like her character. She's protective of Nata, and the bit of her backstory we get is enlightening. The last members of Avis Unit are you, Hunter. and your Palico. You do have a backstory, believe it or not. They keep it vague so you can do your role-playing thing. All we really know is that the hunter is a lone wolf, well-known, and was personally recommended by Alma, who felt inspired by our endeavors. Joined by the secondary Astrum unit made up of Olivia, Athos, Werner, and Eric, we're here for two reasons. Firstly, to find and return Nata to his people, the Keepers, and to investigate the White Wraith, which the guild suspects was a species formerly classified as extinct. As the story advances, we learn about the various cultures of these lands and how they've built their civilization around the Land Spine, an ancient structure that runs through the land connected to the Dragon Torch at its heart and controlling the extreme cycle of fallow, inclemency, and plenty that dominates the environment. Nata's people, the Keepers, are descendants of an ancient civilization that constructed all of this. They also made Arkveld, the White Wraith, one of their guardians, now out of control artificial monsters that feed on Wilk. Wyvern milk. They say wyvern milk a lot.
The source of all wyvern milk.
Please stop calling it milk. The biggest problem I encountered is really that the story and gameplay feel at odds. They built beautiful maps, but the player is largely railroaded and spends little time in each map before shuttling to a new one. Free hunting is mostly pointless during the story. You'll encounter almost every monster this game has to offer in the story itself. And the hunting. The story wants to present unique and interesting challenges, but the gameplay is hunting monsters. The solution is always hunting monsters. This comes to a head with the final boss. Zoshia. This incredible monster was created by an ancient civilization and is said to be supremely dangerous. There's quite a hefty discussion about how to handle this, whether or not to use Nata's special pendant to shut down the torch. At no point do we seek input from any of the people this might affect. The guild people who don't live here feel like they don't have any real right to decide, and the Keepers are too cowardly to make a decision. So it falls to the traumatized child. He makes the hard decision to prevent the awakening of Zoshia, but just before he does, our hunter does what we've been screaming at the screen and just hunts the monster. Wasn't even that hard to fight. Hey Alma, do I get paid for that one? Cause like I authorized the hunt. I like went up and I was like, by my own order. So like that was like a personal thing. I still get paid, right? It's hard to get invested when we do have to inevitably hunt every monster. Let's talk about Nata. There's been seriously mixed feelings about Nata since the game released. Some readings less charitable than others. I've seen a somewhat common interpretation that he's just a worthless, annoying moron who feels empathy for the monsters we're supposed to slaughter in droves. A more accurate interpretation is that Nata is a traumatized child. Early on, when a herd of Doshiguma attack the village of Kunafa, Nata has a full-blown PTSD attack and hides, remembering how Arkveld tore his home and life apart. As the story unfolds and he learns of the past, he's faced with the weight of his people's sins. The creation of the Guardians and Arkveld, who now appears to be evolving, but really is just going savage, in the end butchering monsters in an imitation of eating, something its shriveled organs cannot do. Nata does develop empathy for Arkveld, seeing this as its chance to live and decide for itself. In the end, it did manage to reproduce, but its child is following the same doomed path. Nata, now evidently a hunter in training, steals his nerves and asks us, without prompting, to hunt Arkveld before it destroys the ecosystem. It's quite a compelling arc, seeing Nata grow from a frightened child to a determined teenager. Look, Monster Hunter is at its heart largely a power fantasy, and that tends to attract people who refuse to read any deeper than the flesh wounds their blade can deliver. But Monster Hunter is about the ecosystem and our place in it, even in old gen with stories like relieving Cetus's pain from an overgrown horn. It's rarely the best at this, and if you're considering every side quest canon, we're definitely the bad guys here. But it has been making more of an effort, and Wilds' attempt is the best so far. It definitely has flaws. I've lost more of my life than I'd like to, walking slowly from place to place while people talk, and the ancient civilization plot hits so fast I think I got whiplash. What the fuck is happening? But many of the characters were endearing, which is a step up. I can't name most of Rise's characters, and World didn't even bother to name theirs. But I like many of these characters. Olivia and the Hunter have this wonderful, subtle camaraderie. Werner, Eric, Gemma's energetic and a lot of fun, Alma's sweet, and having her just kind of along on adventures or out exploring is nice. Nata's a good kid with a good future ahead. Poogie's back and he has a little frog friend now? It's not an incredible story. I'd hesitate to even say it's a great story, but it's good, and I am happy to see them trying to tell complex and interesting plots. I look forward to their DLC story and how the storytelling in Monster Hunter will continue to evolve over time. Monster Hunter Wilds takes the franchise further down the road to a wider audience. You've probably heard someone somewhere say it's having its edges sanded off. Certainly the franchise's core gameplay loop is being more and more simplified, where a world removed stuff like the paintball and Rise rendered tracking entirely moot as a mechanic, Wilds hitches its star to the sacred. I named mine Taxi. While this bird is adorable, it unfortunately neuters a lot of this game. Watch as I press one button and disregard not only tracking, but exploration entirely. Tap the directional pad and the sacred will track to your scout fly path, for better or worse. Healing has been optimized as well, now reduced to this one button that chooses the optimal healing for you, but I've never really made use of it, so feel free to just not press it. Both of these reduce the ways a player engages with the game. No more scrambling through your hotbar while the monster bears down on you, unless you choose to make that part of the experience. And while sacred riding, you don't even have to be in the same fucking tab anymore. It also functions as a way to save yourself from a bad spot, similar to one of the wirebug mechanics from Rise. Fuck it, Taxi! Simplification is not all negative, of course. The introduction of Shock Absorber becomes an easy and not overpowered way to remove one of multiplayer's biggest frustrations, getting sent flying by your overzealous teammates. Unlike Flinch Free, Shock Absorber does not remove monster knockback, keeping it suitably underpowered for a one-slot skill. Easy to make room for on a build if it really drives you insane. Although, it doesn't quite work as advertised for lance players. Maybe this is a problem with other shield weapons as well. The new auto counterattack means a bow's rain of arrows can pin me in place for the attack's duration, and dual blades are particularly frustrating to work with. Aside from my unique vexations, their additions to combat are largely excellent. The addition of, in my opinion, the underutilized power clashes, offset attacks, and the dual weapon system offer hunters more options in combat without overcomplicating. Power clashes and the occasional grab for monsters don't have much impact. They're more like a tiny spice to liven up the gameplay. But offset attacks and the ability to switch weapons on the fly without returning to camp deepen the combat in interesting ways. Of course, the standout of this game's combat is the wound system. Building on the existing part break system, striking a part repeatedly now frequently opens wounds through an initial stage of progression. Wounds are juicy openings. Striking one does increased damage until the wound bursts, removing it but doing a chunk of damage. Also leading to frequent free knockdowns, depending on wound placement. Focus strikes destroy the wound immediately but do loads of damage. Many weapons and builds benefit from breaking these wounds. Always remember, it's in your best interest to share. What I appreciate most is the way this wound system has been integrated. Many weapons benefit from them, and builds can be designed to take advantage of them. My own personal build, a basic affinity-focused blast lance, still gets a sizable boost from targeting them. Combat is the most free-flowing it's ever been, but maintains the more methodical core Monster Hunter is known for. I just wish there was a real challenge to use it against. As of writing, the most recent addition has been the Arch-Tempered Ray Dao. While certainly more difficult than anything the main game offered, stop flying, you wee fuck. It just hasn't stacked up. I've hunted every monster solo at least once, and while some presented a modicum of resistance, the biggest problems were due to simply annoying or not properly explained mechanics. I'll provide some proper examples later when we touch on the monsters themselves. Things are certain to get more difficult when the DLC releases and Master Rank arrives, but it shouldn't be too much to ask for a proper challenge to tide us over until then. And no, not the arena quests. I'd like to tackle a challenge with the set I put together for myself. Not a time trial some Capcom employee put together that might not even let me use the weapons I like. I look forward to a real challenge in the future, but I think we need to take a detour here. I saw pretty much everything this game had to show me in 20 hours. After a sudden re-addition of consequential HR caps, it took another few streams to get to the final challenge. So, is 20 hours of gameplay, during which significant challenges were severely lacking for a solo lance, and some additional hours of padding worth it? 20 hours is a respectable amount, and I believe I've gotten my money's worth. I was a shoo-in, I love the gameplay loop, and I've since busied myself with my pastime of fashion hunting. But for someone else, Someone less inclined to the grind, is it worth the minimum $70 price tag? I honestly don't think so, and that's tough to say because I did love my time with this game. There were 29 monsters in Wilds at launch. Discounting the Guardian forms, that's 26. Of that, 15 are new. World had 30. Discount subspecies 27, of those 18 new monsters. Rise knocked it out of the fucking park with 37, discount subspecies 34, but only 11 new monsters. But remember, numbers don't tell whole stories. Things actually get worse with context. Of these 29 monsters, you will encounter the vast majority just through the story itself. No new monsters are encountered organically through exploration or subquests, only returning monsters. And 2 of them are Rathian and Rathalos. Endgame content for Wilds is basically non-existent. Deco farming boils down to doing Arkfeld investigations over and over, Arshan parts, Tempered Arkfeld. You can't even rehunt Jindahat or Zoshia whenever you want, you have to do resets and wait for an investigation to show up. If you think an extremely streamlined 20-hour experience, plus padding before the final few post-credits quests, is worth 70, sure. And since then, we have received Mizutsune from a title update, and Lagiacris is promised down the line. But that's not a ton. And we'll have to pay for the DLC when it releases. Are new monsters and an actual challenge worth even more money? That's a choice you're gonna have to make. For my bet, unless you're a big series fan with money to splash, it's not. If you're looking to get into the series, at a time I said Wilds was a great intro, but time has altered my perspective. If you really want to get into this series, World and Rise are not only more reasonably priced, they're bursting with existing content. Start with base game World or Rise. If you're into it, still don't buy Wilds, buy the respective DLC title. We'll see if Wilds is worth it in the end. After the title update cycle, it might just be worth the 70. Okay, no, I don't think any game is worth 70. Wait for a sale. And ignore the fact I paid 110. It's far from my worst financial decision. Despite how willing the game is to let you ignore exploration, the maps of Monster Hunter Wilds are on another level. Monsters engage in fascinating behavior as always. New Udra tucks itself away to rest, while the amphibious Chattacabra rehydrates in an oasis. But I'd say its most interesting difference, the inclemency system, varies in its quality. The Windward Plains is easily the most striking. Not just from the Sandtide, the Plenty is so clearly different and more vibrant than the Fallow. Although honestly, you could go a lot harder with it. Real deserts can be truly gorgeous. The Scarlet Forest is definitely the poster child for this system, at least in my eyes. I adore rainy aesthetics, and water in general, quiet riverbanks, or the sound of the ocean. I think I was predisposed to like this environment, but the specific way it plays with color is, to me, the most interesting. The most obvious is the water, red from running tree sap in the Fallow, gray as the downpour turns lapping streams into rushing rapids, then bright blue during the Plenty, but the rest of the forest follows suit. Gray and dreary when you first arrive, turns all the way to a lush, vibrant explosion during the Plenty. And I don't think I even need to explain the oil well basin. But the Ice Shard Cliffs are mostly just snow? It's definitely notable when the frost winds blow in, but it's pretty hard to notice the difference between Fallow and Plenty. The ruins of Wyveria are especially bad about this. Some different things glow more or less depending on the environment, but it's really hard to tell if you aren't looking closely. It's kind of just a letdown. This is a really cool and interesting system. You could do many more fun things with it, but 2 of the 5 environments don't really make noteworthy use of it. On the other hand, these environments are gorgeous. When you stumble into a new section of each location, it smacks you in the face. It could be easy for these locations to become a bit homogenized, but wandering the oil well basin can take you from bioluminescent puddles to the new Yaya-filled nest of a new Udra. My own terrible sense of direction struggles with the sheer scale of these maps, but I think it's objectively handled quite well. When a game's map gets too big, it tends to either get filled with nothing or useless bits of side content. Hi Skyrim! Oh my god, it's so good to see you! If you're looking for a good example, I'd say Cyberpunk 2077 handles this pretty well. I've been playing it a lot lately. A good game isn't made good just because its area is big, it has to justify its usage of that area. In 2077's case, many of the gigs and side jobs have very interesting lore to draw you towards doing them, and in many cases full-on voice acting. You're not just crawling through a random cave hoping to find a good sword, someone personally called you and asked you to go deal with the various dungeons dotted around the map. In Monster Hunter's case, the large-scale monsters feel more at home than ever in this larger map. It can't accommodate everyone. The largest monster, Jingle, still needs his own arena. It's a little disappointing given the increased scale, but nothing new. Still, some of these previous games were seriously claustrophobic at times. I refuse to fight you here. We're gonna go down there. Wilds isn't immune to it, but a larger area helps prevent getting caught between a monster and a wall where you can't see what's going on. This giant map and large areas feel a bit better to be operating in than what some previous games would sometimes offer up. The Master Rank content, which is inevitably coming, will probably give us at least one new area to explore. But I really hope we get a few new areas with their own unique weather mechanics even more out there than these ones. The large areas also give monsters more room to breathe and open the door to the return of past contenders like Gammoth. I'd also like to see monsters who interact more with the weather. Monsters might change their behavior depending on the season, but none of them really draw upon the inclemency in any interesting way. Not even all the apexes manage to do this. Nu Udra, Uthduna, and maybe Raydao draw upon their environment, but Jindahad's powers are unrelated to the inclemency, and Zhu just eats guardians. Obviously, this is partially done to not limit monsters to one map as much as they can. The apexes obviously don't move between each other's maps, but for example, Balahara only lives in the sand and thus can't leave the plains. But there are still monsters locked to each map, and if that's the case, I'd like them to be more specific to that map, you know? While the inclemency system is exciting and shakes up the environments, I think it has even more potential to draw upon. Imagine a monster that only shows its full potential in the inclemency. Not like Uthduna's Water Veil, a monster that is around but only shows its full potential during the inclemency. It could even have unique states between the fallow and the plenty. Hell, the inclemency can become active or deactivate during a fight. Imagine an Elder Dragon that could activate or deactivate the inclemency at will depending on its enraged state. The inclemency system is very good, but I think it could be way better than it currently is. And maps are all well and good, but they are nothing without something to populate them, so let's take a look at the monsters of Monster Hunter Wilds. It's finally time to talk about the monsters in the monster hunting game. Let my scripting ability never be overestimated. I really appreciate Wild's first handful of monsters as a means of subtly introducing the player to various mechanics. Chatacabra is the first hunt, big obvious tells with the forelimbs and tongue, and its small size means the player doesn't really have to maneuver to land focus strikes. Then we've got broadly folks like Quemetries introducing elements and Balahara introducing environmental damage. The newcomers' looks are generally very strong, with firm direction and clean designs. My favorite has got to be Nu Udra, a burning oil-covered octopus. I love the little details, like sensory organs in its tentacles, just like its pseudo eyes, or the way it stretches across the floor to move. On the opposite end is Hirobami. I just fucking hate Hirobami, spindly little out-of-reach bastard. I appreciate they're not shying away from unique body types. Temnoceron, cephalopod, amphibian, it gives a lot of hope for monsters that could return on the horizon. I especially have hope for the return of really out-there cool designs like Yamasukami and Nakarkos. But speaking of returning monsters, how about our returning roster? Kongalala is certainly a choice. I actually find it quite charming. I just despise gross out humor. I'm sure fans were quite happy to see this big pink bastard return. From disgust to fear, what about the violent Nursilla? The way it moves in this game is pure menace. And its nest? Oh god. I imagine that was the intended effect. Gypsaros is as weird as ever. The Wraths are here, obviously. Blangonga's wandering around. I was particularly happy to see Gravios. I don't have any special connection, I just like big tanky bastards, and Basarios and Rise didn't really do it for me. They really sold the pure weight and power behind Gravios, those fire beams and its lumbering motions. It's perfectly depicted as a living and very territorial boulder. And it's just kinda lovely to see Young Cuckoo return as a surprise fight after after the credits roll. Mizu's here with his own incredible glow up, but a bit disappointing for the first title update to bring back someone we just had. And if I've completed my grind in time, Legiacris and Seregios are coming soon with their own great looks. So, that obviously didn't happen. Have you ever pulled an all-nighter to finish your project only to realize that your critical pieces of equipment, a la your microphone, doesn't work? So you spend hours trying to figure out what it is, and all your software seems fine, so you replace every bit of hardware except for the one thing you can't replace, which is the XLR cable, and then that doesn't fix it. So you assume, oh, the XLR cable has to be broken. So of course you order one express, you pay $22 to get it there same day, and then you replace it, and that still doesn't work. So you dive back into the software, and it turns out your BIOS is 2 years out of date, and you don't know how that happened. So you update the BIOS, and then that doesn't seem to fix it at first, but then it does seem to fix it, but you're still getting occasional audio dropouts, which you really shouldn't be getting, and that started before this started. So is it fixed, or is it just like gone away for now, but at least you can finish the project, and then you spend several days trying to like find the energy to actually sit down and record because it's your least favorite part of the project, and you're still out the fucking $22 for the cable? That ever happened to you? Still, the burning eye shit Mizu pools fucks hard. I honestly can't think of a single design that entirely misses. The closest it gets to missing is the Guardians. I don't know how much I love them. And not having the base forms, leaving their armor covered in ugly glowy bits as the only option, unforgivable. Straight to jail. Meanwhile, the Apexes, I think, are all home runs. I extolled the glory of New Udra already, but how about Raidao? I think it's the second flashiest fight in the whole game, and definitely matches its inclemency the best. I really love Uthduna as just another big bastard, and the Waterville mechanic is a lot of fun. It makes breaking its defenses immensely satisfying. Jindahad kind of epitomizes the cleverness of avoiding Elder Dragons. Instead of mystical power, it becomes nature's perfect thermoregulator. Zhu may be the weakest, but I think I'm personally just kinda sick of hunting the bastard for its cool armor. I do also love its nest, a literal hole in the wall, something carved long after the passing of the ancient civilization and beyond their plans for this place. It's even a powerful yellow opposed to the blue of the ruins. Introducing the Guardians, then a monster that evolved to prey on those Guardians, is a nice swerve and with an appropriately menacing design. Speaking of the Guardians though, we need to talk about our flagship. Your mileage may vary story-wise, but Arkveld easily joins Nergigante and Magnamalo for iconic flagships in my book. The chain blades make for these unique and flowy movements as it fights, while still visually tying it to the larger plot. The way its all-gray design takes on various colors through the fight helps make what could be a visually underwhelming palette pop as well. Giving it a power clash and a grab was inspired, really giving hunters an opportunity to make the fight as cinematic as possible. I almost wish it had a powerful breath attack as well. Guardian and normal Arkveld being practically the same monster is more than a bit disappointing. I really would have loved to see the difference between an artificial and original Arkveld more plainly. Still, in my opinion, a very fun fight, an incredible design, and a good enough story. That just leaves our not elders. Gormagala, Baby Elder, and Zoshia, clearly an Elder Dragon, but let's all pretend otherwise for a bit. Starting with Gormagala, easily the best glow up. What was messy purple effects and rise becomes this gorgeous black and purple shroud in Wilds. I love the Magalas in general, and I can't wait to see Shigaru and Chaotic inevitably show up. Although, it was disappointing having this be the surprise final fight in Wilds when it was just in Rise. There are other great monsters who could have returned even if you don't want to include Elder Dragons. Deviljho would have been an interesting and welcome curveball. And hey, how about Atul Ka, an Elder level monster that is nonetheless not an Elder? It would have fit perfectly with the ancient tech to build from. Honestly, I'd put money on it. One of the title updates is going to add a new area, and in there will be the surprise Atul Ka return. You even have the perfect area for it in the Windward Plains, a big sandy area where it can be buried. It's perfect. I genuinely, if and when this happens, I'm gonna say I called it. But potential returns aside, let's talk about the real showstopper. Zoshia. This fight is awesome and a little annoying. This is something I ran into first with Jindahad. I took a cart because I didn't spot the cover I needed to pull down, and it wasn't explained as a mechanic until the second nuke. Zoshia is particularly frustrating about it, however. The initial nuke was very confusing. I tried at first to use the crystals as cover. Guess how that went.
Shit! That didn't work.
I tried to keep my distance or get behind it. Eventually, I learned you need elemental damage to remove them and create safe space. Then there's this. With Lance's low mobility, this move is hard to avoid, completely ignores shield even with max guard up, and chews through health. Easy cart for a poor solo Lance trying her best. But that aside, the sheer spectacle of the fight is impeccable. Zoshia ripping out of the regenerative Wilk shell, tiny details like the one hollow eye when breaking its head mirrored on its armor set. And the final reveal of its full form with the hunter remarking about it being a black dragon? An artificial endbringer, lacking the Fatalis power but still enough to bring their civilization to its knees. The progression through the fight as Zoshia grows more violent and more of its Wilk draped domain catches fire, it's the real standout battle for me. Honestly, I really want to do that match again. Where's the optional quest? Yeah, elephant in the room, 0 optional quest for Zoshia. It's the same for Jindahad, but at least Jindahad was immediately available as a rehunt through the investigations. We had to wait for Zoshia. Other than that, incredible fight, and now we can experience it anytime we want. Faux pas perhaps forgiven, but not forgotten. So, what now? I kind of already finished the review in the middle, with my whole detour about whether or not the game's worth it right now. How do I wrap this up? Well, I'm not sure it's about that. I really love Monster Hunter. I know I'm a 5th gen hunter out of Kimura, and to some people that makes me a lesser fan. But this series is something special. Wilds has it too, it's all still here, but it feels not quite. Our next title update is bringing exciting stuff, sure, but it is also bringing layered weapons. It's like you gave me the cupcake and then said, well, we'll have the icing ready in like 2 or 3 months, don't worry about it. Monster Hunter Wilds is brimming with potential. The places this game could go defy belief. But the lack of endgame content and the performance issues, it's gonna take a hard life cycle to get it there. It's about weighing up whether you want to stay along for that ride, if we make it there at all. There are some game series you've just gotta stick with, even if it doesn't make sense. I'm a Pokemon fan, I know all about not making sense. I'll surely be back once the DLC drops. Let's meet again, okay listener?